Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
My name is Michael Zoldis, and I'm your service coordinator this morning. I just want to welcome you to this beautiful, beautiful day in May, where the leaves and the yellow-green is just emerging, and everything is bursting with life. I'm very happy that our pastor, Dr. Leon Dunkley, is going to be delivering this morning's reflection. If you are new to the North Chapel, I bid you welcome. If you would feel comfortable standing up and introducing yourselves, or just giving a wave to everybody so we know who you are. We'd love to know where you're from and what brings you here, if you might come back. Any new folks here? Okay. Well, if you are new here, if you are visiting, please consider signing the guest book at the back of the sanctuary. There will be spiritual exploration today. Tatum and Taylor Barnes are both here, and we'll be providing that for the children. And if Tatum, Taylor, and the children would help me light the chalice a little bit later, that would be wonderful. Thank you in advance. There is coffee hour this morning. I pressed start on the coffee makers. I brew it slowly and boldly, so apologies in advance. You may want to start with the decaf first and then ease your way into the morning. There are lots of announcements in the bulletin, if you check the announcements there, and I know that Mary Blanton is eager to tell you one more.
This is in your bulletin too, but I just wanted to say it out loud. How many of you like pizza? Okay, so how many of you like to have fun? All right, so we need 4 or 5 people who like to make pizza, who like to have fun, to learn how to run the pizza oven. We're gonna have a team, hopefully, of 8 people, so that we can have pizza night every Wednesday all summer. So
Nice. Working.
right. So please see me after the service if you would like to do that. I'll be at coffee hour. And it's fun, it's not hard, and with another experienced person as your teammate, it will be easy. So, thanks.
Author Barry Lopez published his book, Arctic Dreams, Imagination and Desire in a Northern Landscape in 1986. It looks like this, and I'm about a third of the way through it right now, and I'm relishing it, and I highly recommend it to you if you're a fan of wildlife, especially wildlife which we never get to see. While sitting on a sea cliff on the north coast of Borden Peninsula on Baffin Island in the Arctic, you can watch narwhals, the single-tusked whales that live year-round in the Arctic. And in June, you can watch them swim past Borden Peninsula almost continuously in an unbroken chain in the 24-hour light of the polar summer. He writes, "Sitting high on a sea cliff in sunny, blustery weather in late June, the familiar sense of expansiveness, of deep exhilaration such weather brings over me, combined with the opportunity to watch animals, is summed up in a single Eskimo word, kuvianikamut, to feel deeply happy. Kuvianikamut. Say it with me. Say the first part first. Kuvia. Kuvia. Nikumut. Nikumut. Put them together. Kuvianikamut. One more time. Kuvianikamut. Take one deep breath. Release. This is one of Laszlo's creations. That's Laszlo. This painting, I found it on my desk this morning as I was gathering these words together. Yesterday, Laszlo and Elizabeth and I and the Change the World kids gathered at the Pomfret School with Phyllis Arata Myers and Rachel Apple and Lucian Myers and other Change the World kids. And we took the steel bridge that goes from the playground of the Pomfret School across the brook, and we combed the brook side for trash, wrappers, anything that we can find. And I thought, surely among all of this growth, these fiddlehead ferns and the trillium that's coming up, this red trillium coming up, wild ramps, skunk cabbage, beautiful things with names. We're not going to find trash back here, surely no. But we did. We did find some. We found quite a bit. And actually, the closer we looked, the more we could find. And I was so grateful to be a part of that activity with the Change the World kids and with my family. And later, when we got back home for lunch, I was sitting on the porch with Laszlo, and he was sitting with a short sleeve shirt and shorts on, and he was chilly. And so he was leaning up against me. He finished his lunch, and he sat in my lap. He's 9 years old, almost. Sat in my lap and put his neck on my neck. And we listened to a Carolina Wren. And I knew that I was experiencing Kuviani Kumut. And now we'll have a period of meditation.
Good morning. Indifference to sublime wonder is the root cause of sin. Abraham Joshua Heschel. Yesterday afternoon, I was asked to pray. For the past 6 years, I have been serving on the board of directors at Star Island. As many of you know, Star Island is a camp and a conference center that's located 9 miles off the coast of Portsmouth, New Hampshire, STAR is jointly owned and jointly managed by two denominations, by the Unitarian Universalists and by a body from the United Church of Christ. The annual meeting for the Star Island Corporation, the governing body of Star Island, took place yesterday in Portsmouth at South Church, historic church. There were 175 corporation members present in the building or attending online, and we began our meeting at 1 o'clock, and I was asked to pray. May I share with you what I shared with them? May I use that as our prayer this morning? Is that okay? My words were these. Went to Saranac Lake in the Adirondack Mountains, placed myself in the path of totality, wanted to fully experience the eclipse, the great coincidence of the opposites that we call darkness and light. And when the darkness came, when we were in the shadow of the moon, it was otherworldly. I was present to how fragile everything is, how interconnected and interdependent, how trivial and how miraculous. The darkness lasted for minutes and was shattered by a diamond's burst, a piercing white beam from the sun that was 8 minutes old and 8 minutes young. And the birds began to sing again, and the normal new sunlight returned, and I was changed, and an 11-year-old girl who I did not know started dancing. She said, "That was the coolest thing in the universe." And I thought to myself, plausible. To witness precisely where we are and when we are and how we are in the context of the wide sky above, wow. In honor of the transient and the permanent in life, present to that which is highest in us, that which is best in us, honoring, pursuing the unimaginably coolest things that are truly rare in the universe. Great Spirit, God of many names, God beyond all naming, Spirit of life. Strengthen our hearts, tough enough to hold the joy and to hold the sorrow and the suffering of the world. In Israel and in Gaza, in Russia and in Ukraine, on college campuses trying to make good sense of things. Howard Thurman said, "Keep afresh before us the moments of our high resolve. Guide us to preserve the sacredness of our bravest star." And then we talked logistics for 4.5 hours. On a beautiful day, which was a bummer. Such a beautiful bummer and well worth the trip, because we really got to experience ourselves as a healthy body, as light individual petals of a larger flower working together. That's an important part of the experience, to experience oneself as an individual petal in a larger flower. It requires some practice. We can make a ritual of this, a ritual of coming together under the sun in a beautiful way. An artist writes, "There are birds on the roof of my mother's house. I have no stones to chase them away. There are birds on the roof of my mother's house that will sit on my own roof someday, and they fly at the windows and they fly at the doors. Where does she get the strength to fight them anymore? She counts on her children as a shield against the rain, lifts her eyes to the... She counts on her children as a shield against the pain. She lifts her eyes to the sky like a flower to the rain." As we are honing in on Mother's Day, I reflect on these lines of poetry, more powerful for me these years because of the journey that my mother and I have chosen over the years, more powerfully for how honest we've chosen to be with one another. The artist that I just quoted was Sting, born in 1951 and given the name Gordon Matthew Thomas Sumner. He was the frontman of a new wave rock group in the 80s called The Police. He's 72 years old. Everyone still calls him Sting. It seems informal, not Mr. Sting yet. With all of his years, not Dr. Sting, for he holds an honorary degree from Northumbria and Newcastle in northernmost England. I quoted the song, The Lazarus Heart, and it made my mother I shared it with my mother. The opening words begin as follows. He looked beneath his shirt today, and there was a wound in his breast so deep and wide, and from that wound a lovely flower grew from somewhere deep inside. And he turned around to face his mother, to show her the wound in his breast that burnt like a brand. And the sword that cut him open was the sword in his mother's hand. Every day, another miracle. Now, my own mother recoiled when I recited this poetry, unable and unwilling to relate to the idea of holding the sword that had injured her son. It's only metaphorical, I said. You see where I'm going. It's just life, and how could it be otherwise? But these words were lost on her. She would not hold the thought and change the subject quite quickly, because it's so much easier to talk about kinder things. Last Sunday, the reflection was called The Soul of Wit. The title was taken from Shakespeare's Hamlet. To his son Laertes, the loquacious father, Polonius, explained that brevity is the soul of wit. The reflection, that reflection last week turned on a live interaction skit that Jimmy Kimmel did on his late night show. He went to South Carolina on primary day a little while back and asked voters about their feelings of the two presidential candidates. Their responses were certainly entertaining, and Jimmy Kimmel got a lot of laughs about this, joking around and poking lighthearted fun at his guests. It was fascinating because what happened appeared to be a double standard. Interviewers were asked questions selectively in a way that William James might have appreciated. If you remember, William James was the person who, with the provocative quote, who said, "A great many people think that they are thinking when they are merely rearranging their prejudices." Yeah. I think that James would have liked this skit because when the questions seemed to be about Joe Biden and his policies, they answered with one set of prejudices. And when the answers seemed to be about Donald Trump and his set of policies, they answered with another set of prejudices. They were rearranging prejudices, indeed. We all do that sometimes. At least I do. I'm not proud of it. It's a habit in our culture, though. Difficult to do otherwise. It's like a shortcut that gets us to the rewards that we seek quickly. If it had been me being interviewed, my highest goal, I hate to admit this, but my highest goal would probably have been not looking foolish on television. Especially on YouTube, which is like forever. It would have probably been not saying something that would embarrass me or get me kicked out of my social circles. It might sound vain, but it's kind of who we are, many of us. It's kind of countercultural to do otherwise, to stand with the one who is bearing the brunt of the public joke, to stand with the person who has just made an embarrassing mistake, to stand with the lonely and the forlorn, with the broken and the battered and the bruised. This kind of kindness is countercultural, it's radical, it's revolutionary. Kindness is revolutionary. I love your sense of humor, and I love to see you smile. I love your sense of balance, and I love your sense of time. I love your music in the morning and your rhythm in the night, but it's your kindness that shines so bright. Kindness is revolutionary. An artist writes, "Yes, I love your beauty, and I love your sexy moves. But more, I love your honesty, and you always tell the truth. I love your vision of the future and your hope that never dies, but it's your kindness that clears my skies." Kindness is revolutionary. David Wilcox writes, "Yes, I love your wisdom and your knowledge of the past, your willingness to listen, and your taste for what will last. I love your compassion for the suffering and your solid happiness, but it's your kindness that I love best. I love. I love. I love." Because kindness is revolutionary, it turns us full around. It eclipses us. It changes what we know. How does it do that? How does kindness turn us full around? Its secret is in the sand, and like the myth of the man in the moon, kindness shares no deeper understanding when we close our hands too soon. Kindness won't foreclose on us. Kindness reminds us of that which is most holy in us, a lightness of heart, balance, music, beauty, honesty, truth, wisdom, the willingness to listen, our taste for that which will last, compassion for the suffering, solid happiness. Kindness is revolutionary, and for me it is a kind of prayer, a way of seeing grace in the world around me, in the world beyond me. So yesterday I was asked to pray, and I chose to mention the eclipse because an 11-year-old girl who I did not know thought that the eclipse was the coolest thing in the universe. And when the sun and the moon had lined up, when darkness and light were aligned in the heavens, she thought it was great. And I believe that she was affected by this moment. She'd have to say whether or not that's true and just how deeply. Many of us, I hope most or even all of us, I pray, were affected by this moment wherever we were in the world. I was affected, not precisely because of the eclipse, although that was powerful. I was affected by a kindness that I felt towards everyone on earth. I was affected by an expression of grace that was non-denominational. It foreclosed on none of us. Maybe such an expression of grace is what Heschel meant by sublime wonder. You remember Abraham, Joshua Heschel, who was the one who said, indifference to sublime wonder of living is the root cause of sin. What is it like to be indifferent to wonder? It's a rhetorical question. I've been there a few times in my life, and I'm not particularly interested in returning. Many who I love have been there. Maybe it's just part of life's journey. It's a difficult place to be, and I don't recommend it. Although it does make the pathway back to the beautiful more obvious. As long as I do my part, as long as we do our part. My part was remaining kind to myself, remaining kind to spirit, remaining kind to the ones that I love, even when they were not kind to me. Extending this practice, widening this spiritual circle of kindness until it included everyone, no exceptions, which is to say, widening that spiritual circle until I wasn't angry anymore. Until I was lighthearted, balanced, open, honest, wise. Until I was truly, bless you, until I was truly compassionate. This is what kindness is to me. It is by no means an aspect of pity. It is an experience of remaining with wonder. It is the experience of not letting grace be stripped away from us somehow, not by that which is petty and small, not by that which is mean, and not by that which is meaningless, not by anything. Simone Weil said that our sins are flights from emptiness. If she was right, it seems that kindness is among the pathways back. Unitarian Universalism tends not to use the language of sin in its common expression. It's not that we escape it entirely or even sometimes. This tradition of faith has emerged from those who had highest regard for the Bible, who were disciplined enough to read it closely, and who had integrity enough to raise questions that were healthy. I won't explore this morning the degree to which those historical questions were questions regarding the text or our relationship with it. As Carl Scoville would say, one of our leading theologians, Scripture is ever and always an interactive experience. But I won't go there this morning. It's too complex a subject. Suffice it to say that in my hour of darkness, to quote the Beatles, Paul McCartney, I met with a man named Reverend Jacques, and he asked me how Unitarian Universalists address the concept of sin. And I told them that historically we've developed the concept of the original blessing, which is lovely, but it does not powerfully set us apart from other traditions. He asked, does your avoidance of the subject of sin make it that much easier for some of you to commit it? Reverend Jacques was as old back then as Sting is today, but they could have been brothers. And if they really had been brothers, they would have been warring brothers. Sting does not describe himself as a religious person. In fact, in an interview that he gave with Time magazine in 2011, Sting said that he was clearly agnostic and that the certainties of religious faith were dangerous. And yet, the title of the song that I quoted above was The Lazarus Heart. The song that he wrote, Lazarus of Bethany, is a figure within the Christian Bible mentioned in the New Testament and in the Gospel of John, who 4 days after his death was restored to life by Jesus. Every day, another miracle indeed. In any case, and in closing, I leave this final thought with you in the form of a poem, and I hope that it stays with you somehow through the week. The name of the poem is Ways Kindness May Name, and it begins with words by Joni Mitchell. I saw a falling star burn up above the Las Vegas sands. It wasn't the one that you gave to me that night down south between the trailers, not the early one that we can wish upon, and not the northern one that guides in the sailors. As I remain, and river falls into the sea, as I remain, I see your face and river smiling back at me as I remain. Then will I know, for the first time on the ground. Then will I know and falsely claim all of this and heaven for my own. Then will I know. Darkness touching, analyzing myth and mourning, true believing that I should have seen the signs. Darkness touching, here survived by this day's dawning sun, breaking North Carolina pines and sending light over April's shoulder as she goes. May the graces know her way. Sending light into the open arms of this young man today. Waters touching bridge. If I'm alive tomorrow morning, and if kindness names the ways I know, if ocean guides my way, I'll go. As I remain, as mountain falls into the sky, as I remain within this valley, taking first steps out of time, as I remain. Then will I go to where the waters tend to fall. Then will I go and lay beneath the wave in answer to her call. Then will I go, darkness touching. As I remain, as stars are fallen through the earth, as I remain, as constellations seem to gather in the verse, as I remain. Then will I know, as for the first time in the sky, then will I know that whole constellations seem to gather in your eyes. Then will I know. Darkness touching, analyzing myth and mourning, true believing that I should have seen the signs. Darkness touching, here survived by this day's dawning sun, breaking North Carolina pines and sending light over April's shoulder as she goes. May the graces know her way. Sending light into the open arms of this young man today. Waters touching bridge, if I'm alive tomorrow morning and kindness names the ways I know, if ocean guides my way, I'll go. It was Abraham Joshua Heschel who said, indifference to sublime wonder is the root cause of sin. May we find our best way to remain with that which is holy, which is lighthearted, which is balanced, which is loving, which is honest, which is true, which is compassionate, and may we bring that up in us until we flower into the world. May it be so. Blessed be, and amen.